Hi, Dr. Jack. Welcome to the show. It is an honor to have you here today.
Oh, I so appreciate that, Vanessa. You probably say that to all your guests.
Mm.
But I'll take that for what it is. I do appreciate it.
Well,
Excited to share my information.
absolutely. Well, it is an honor to have everybody, but there are some people, as you and I were chatting off air, there are some people that, there's sort of an alignment that just fits a little bit differently. And with you, and I've followed your work for quite a while now. Uh, there's just so much that I feel like we're aligned on in terms of health and longevity and wellness. And so I really do mean it from my heart. I am very, very, very privileged to have you come on. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
So thank you again. Excited.
Yeah. So before we get going, why don't you give us just a little bit of a backstory on you, just being a board certified cardiologist, and also why the switch? Because I know that you started out in more of a conventional practice and then, things happened and there was kind of a turn of the tide. So why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown on that?
Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Note version. I was born into the medical matrix. My father was a cardiologist, so I was listening to cardiology talk, disease talk when I was in my mother's womb. So I'm hearing it there, and then as a child, and then so on and so forth. And my whole life, I wanted to be just like my father and become a cardiologist, and that's exactly what I did. Finished up the 10 year of medical training after undergraduate, and I was the chief fellow in my cardiology program. And then I moved from Chicago out to Arizona for all the reasons why people would move from Chicago to Arizona for the weather. And my career was absolutely taking off. It was like I just, tons of patients, hospital-based cardiologist, making lots of money on the job, like everything's great. But for my father, things were not so great. He was actually becoming sick and dying of a neurologic disease similar to Parkinson's. And ultimately, in his late 50s, he would be diagnosed with something called PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy, at the Mayo Clinic. And the Mayo Clinic sat, my family down, my mom, my sister, brother, and said, he has PSP. There's no cause for this, and there's no treatment for it, and he'll be dead within 3 years. Well, simultaneously and serendipitously, I met this 29-year-old chiropractor, and she told me all the reasons why my father was sick and dying. The way that he eats, the way that he lives, the way that he thinks, the pharmaceuticals, poisons, toxins, all these things she's like spitting out at me. And I was just, blown away because it made perfect sense. I saw sickness all around me in the hospitals, sickness in my own family like this. Medicine has no answers, as to why. Very rarely do they have any therapies that are worthwhile. And it made, again, perfect sense to me. Mayo Clinic has no idea. The 29-year-old chiropractor, she's got all the ideas. So I listened to what she had to say. I would change my personal life because she basically said, if you don't change yourself, you will follow the same predicament because I'm living the exact same lifestyle as my father. If you don't change, you're going to get sick of PSP or similar. Something will befall you. And again, I listened. I started changing my personal life, my medical practice. And then eventually I would leave the big cardiology group and start my own company, Natural Heart Doctor. And yes, I would marry this now no longer 29-year-old chiropractor. It is 20 years later. We've got four beautiful children, and we live on a ranch in Colorado, 6 goats, 24 chickens, and two cats and a dog. So it's been a journey that has been incredible. And I like to think of myself finally as to say, like, I understand and lived this one side, the medical paradigm, and now I'm over in the health paradigm, and it makes a lot more sense over here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I know a lot of your story. And, it's so interesting because I feel like there's there's so many people that kind of they start out in this conventional space and then they sort of just realize down the line that what they're seeing is that they're not getting their patients to where they want them to go or to be. And it's more of like a sick care situation than it is really a healthcare situation. And I'm paralleling it to what you just said, which is I was in this paradigm and now I'm in this health paradigm, right? Which, I mean, if we really think about it, unfortunately, in the conventional space, you're not there for health. You're there just to manage symptoms and you're there to, I guess, band-aid what's happening, but you're never really getting to the root cause. And I'm sure you saw so much of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw it every single day. And, I think the best practitioners in the true health space, like I am, and what we're talking about right now, they're one of two types, really. They're people who have suffered individually, like a lot of people, a lot of the medical doctors that are now, self-described kind of holistic practitioners, is because they suffered and mainstream medicine had no answers for them. And they found answers, hopefully, in the natural holistic world. The other is when they've had family members, who were sick, and they realized they were not getting the answers in mainstream. And that's really for me, because people would say, well, now that you found this newfound, religion of health and wellness, like, do you, Jack Wolfson, feel better? And my answer is invariably, no, I don't feel better. I felt really good when I was 34 and I met the woman who would become my wife. And I feel really good now. But for me, it was about prevention. Like, I saw what happened to my father, and I don't want that to happen to me. And now, as a father with children all the way down to age 3, I don't want to be dead. I don't want to be a 63-year-old Parkinsonian type, person who dies. I don't want to be the 59-year-old guy who has a massive heart attack, or somebody who has cancer, or somebody who has dementia. I mean, everybody's got these different labels, of course. One person has this, another person has this. Medicine is really good at the labels. There's like 40, 50, 60, 100 different skin disorders. But as you mentioned previously in your comments, it's all about root cause. It's about how violations of the concept of eat well, live well, think well, that's what causes all these diseases in the medical textbooks. And it's just so sad, because the medical doctors are totally brainwashed into one way of thinking. It's all about pharmaceuticals. It's all about test to order. It's all about surgical procedures. We never get trained in discussing causation, which, when you ask the non-medical person, they're like blown away. They're like, wait a second, my doctor never had any training in nutrition. My doctor had no training in the healthy lifestyle, the importance of sleep and sunshine and physical activity, and environmental toxins, which is like an postgraduate degree in that topic. Like, and we get zero training in that. So that's why it's so beautiful to be able to come on shows like yours and really work to get out the truth. And that's what's great about podcasts. That's what's great about blogs. That's what's great about the internet, is that there's plenty of suppression of freedom of information, of our healthcare choices. But now we've got more tools in our toolbox than ever to really, reach and therefore help people.
Oh, so well said. So well said. And you're right. There's so much suppression, and it's a battle. I mean, even for someone like myself, a little guy over here just trying to do what I can in the space that I'm in with the privileges that I have, which I consider, as I was telling you off air, to be able to speak to people like yourself is such a privilege in my life. And I don't ever take it for granted. And whether it's 10 people that I'm talking to or 10,000 people that I'm talking to, it makes the difference, because it could be someone's life at the end of the day. So that, yeah, it was super, super well said. You may have already answered this question, but because it's kind of an umbrella question, as we're going to segue into specific questions that I have about, blood pressure and cholesterol and statins and all those things. But when we're like hyper focusing on cardiovascular health, why do you think that we are seeing just it's like an explosion of sickness? Like, if you could give just a few reasons, like more tailored down, what would those be?
What will this be? Number one, the reasons for the explosion is people rely on their medical doctors for health advice. That's mistake number one, because the medical doctors push pharmaceuticals, surgical procedures. They don't have any discussions about health and wellness. So that's number one mistake, is that they trust their medical doctors. Big, big, big mistake. Number two, people blame things on genetics, right? They say, oh, well, I've got, bad genetics. There's no such thing as bad genetics. And I know you know that. A lot of your listeners know that, but I want everyone to know that. We've got to stop blaming our genetics. Our genetics are perfect. We
Yep.
can run and jump and feel, and we can see, and we can make babies. Like, we can do some pretty incredible stuff. Why would we be genetically programmed to have heart attacks, strokes, cancer, dying? We're not. There's no heart attack gene. There's no cancer gene. There's none of that. There is only a man-made poisonous lifestyle that leads to sickness. So let's stop blaming our genetics. Now, there can be family history because if you sit on the couch
Mm.
eating cookies and cupcakes and ice cream like your family members did, yeah, you're all going to suffer from some disease. But we're not built that way. We're not designed to have heart attacks and strokes. And then number three, I think people ultimately too, like they don't have a plan. They don't have a health plan. So people tend to jump from one thing to another, one diet to another, one lifestyle, to another, one supplement, to another. And I think having a good coordinated plan of attack is always going to be beneficial. And along with that plan is the good support system of people to kind of help guide you along. And I think like that kind of program, especially in the 21st century world where there's so much noise, so much chaos going on, that good plan, good support system is very important.
Yeah. Wow. No, that was awesome. And it's funny because I have notes in front of me just to keep myself on track. And the question I was going to come to you after was the genetic component, but you already tackled it because I hear that so often, even in some of the circles that I run in. I mean, you kind of hear, I mean, it's interesting because you can even be talking to somebody who like really errs on the side of alternative health and wellness, and they're still talking about the genetic predispositions that they have and how, they can only really like tend to their health to some degree. And it's me, there might be a sentence behind that, right? Like, well, it's probably going to happen to me, but I'm going to treat myself holistically. It's like even that form of thinking is poisonous thinking, in my opinion. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you take anyone's genetics and put them in a world 15,000 years ago. Um, there's no disease. There's no heart attack, strokes, cancer. There's nothing like that. You only die of trauma or you die of old age. That's or starvation, like something from a very difficult lifestyle, potentially 15,000 years ago. But to think again that there's some kind of heart attack gene. Why would nature, either God designed or evolution or God created evolution, which is what I believe in,
Hmm.
that this whole process led to a heart attack gene. There's no reason for that. Like evolution occurs in a certain way that, again, like our genetics improve over time. We're able to do certain things and amazing things over time. Or again, as spiritually, created by some entity, call that, God, Jesus, whatever somebody may, want to say. Why would they program us with the heart attack gene? Like, I'm God, I'm going to create, Adam and Eve, and I'm going to put into their genetic code, into their DNA, the heart attack gene. It just doesn't make sense. Now, the medical doctors love to use this phrase and this kind of commentary unknowingly to them. It's just the way that they've been trained. But by using that kind of language, it implies there's nothing you could do about it. Well, Vanessa, listen, you got a family history of breast cancer, you got the breast cancer gene. There's nothing you could do about it except for to, have, bilateral mastectomy, take chemotherapy, radiation, keep getting these. There's nothing you could do about it. So now we've totally, disempowered, the person actually do something when you're like, well, you have this BRCA gene. There has been a link between people with this particular gene and a much higher risk of cancer, but something has to trigger the gene. So yes, certain families can have certain diseases, certain cancers, heart disease, whatever it may be. But to what your comment was before, something has to trigger it. And the trigger are the violations of eat well, live well, think well. And your best strategy is to improve on the eat well, live well, think well. Now, you can also say, hey, listen, the world is so toxic, so polluted. There's no way to avoid the triggers. And that part may be true. That part may be true. But I think everybody should be given that opportunity, maybe even going back to the BRCA, gene and the increased, predisposition of those women to develop breast cancer. Should they be offered a discussion to say, well, okay, you could go for bilateral mastectomy, but what about trying this approach
Mm.
and giving that a shot?
Yeah.
I think that's a conversation that should be had.
I absolutely agree with you. And I just love this part of the conversation because I think that people really need to understand the difference between genes and family history. I think that people are so programmed, and you're right. Unfortunately, when you go into the conventional space, doctors are using this, and it's not, I'm not saying like, oh, they're trying to harm us. Like, and I don't think that, you know, you feel that, you probably feel similar. It's not like they're actively walking in patient care and being like, can't wait to lie to this patient. You know what I mean? Like, that's not happening. But unfortunately, the rhetoric that they're speaking and the terminology that they're using is indirectly just roping that patient into the system, right? You're going to be locked in. You're going to have to take pharma drugs. You're not going to have that much of a choice, to your point. And that is so powerful. It's more powerful than, like, sometimes I even think that's more powerful than the food that you're eating, or, you know, the rest that you're getting, because those thoughts, when you actually get programmed, whether it's conscious or subconscious, oh, there's not really much I can do about this, whether it's a cardiovascular incident or, you know, something that's going on with your heart, or something like cancer, like you're referring to. That is more detrimental, I think, than anything.
Yeah, I totally agree. And our methodology, eat well, live well, and think well. So think well is just as important as the food we eat, and the lifestyle that we lead. But I want everyone to understand like how we got to this place. We got to this place over
Mm.
100 years ago, essentially by the takeover of the health and wellness industry. So it was a thriving thing to talk about nutrition and lifestyle. And there were a lot of people talking about this in the 1800s, early 1900s. Medical schools were developed in the osteopathic fields, in the naturopathic fields, in the chiropractic fields, the homeopathy, I mean, and just so many different things. And then as the story goes, the Rockefellers, John D. Rockefeller, and likely other people who were his controllers, basically set up a system where all of the holistic training facilities were shut down, and it was all in favor of the pharma model and supporters thereof. And these were the quote unquote medical schools that exist today. And it was all done on purpose. It was all done for the pharmaceutical industry. The Rockefellers were oil people. They were using oil-based products, petroleum-based products to develop pharmaceuticals. And that's where it stands right now, over 100 years later, and all the medical training that goes along with it. It's all controlled by pharmaceutical companies. It's all controlled by insurance companies, hospitals, big device companies, and of course the pharmaceutical companies that we said. It's just a reality. It's just the way that it is. And once you understand that medical matrix, hopefully you can get out of it. I do want to say, listen, bless the men and women who work in emergency rooms and trauma centers. There's a time and a place for that. But if you're looking to prevent, treat, and reverse disease, cardiovascular disease, #1 killer worldwide, despite trillions of dollars spent on cardiovascular disease, still the #1 killer worldwide. If you're looking to prevent, treat, and reverse chronic disease, the medical community has nothing. Zero.
Yep. Yep. You guys, I hope that you are hearing him well right now, because, like he said, this is just a reality. It's not some conspiracy theory. And I think that, as much as I talk about this a lot with, in other episodes with other guests, I mean, the way in which that you and I are speaking right now, I think it's articulated so well, and you're saying it so well. And I think people just need to understand that it's just a matter of acceptance. And once there's an acceptance around it, then you can start to make choices of, okay, what are you going to do with this information? I talk about this all the time, because at the end of the day, it is still your choice. I mean, you can decide, I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right, but you have the information. And I think that, again, I think that's why people sometimes don't want to hear it, or they shun it, because then they're like, shoot, now I have to think about this. I can't just outsource my health or my problem or my concern, because that's what I was so used to doing. And it's just easier that way, right? Just easier. Like, you know,
Well, listen, if you're shopping for a new TV, a new car, a new house, you spend just hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, oftentimes, looking at all those different things. But for healthcare decisions, the biggest thing in the world about what we do with our health, we walk into the doctor's office, we're there for 2 minutes, and we're like, okay, walk out and just take their word for it. We trust them. But it was all by design to instill that trust, gain that trust, have that MD after your name, And MD only means more drugs. That's all it means. It doesn't mean like
Mm.
medical doctor, a medical doctor. No, no. Let me make it really clear. It's more drugs is what that is. So, but again, that was all by design, but people need to open up their eyes. They do need to shop around. And they also, again, protect that freedom, protect the freedom of choice on this, because yes, you can say, well, you've got the freedom of choice of what you eat and how you live. We have that freedom right now in most scenarios, but there could come a day, should we give the powers that be the freedom over those choices, where they're like, okay, listen, we have enough research that says that eating red meat is bad. Therefore, we're going to ban red meat, just like again they tried to do in so many different ways, whether it was alcohol, whether again restrictions in different places, maybe some positive, some negative, but let's keep the government out of our healthcare decisions. They can't tell me what I'm going to inject into myself, what I'm going to swallow, that or my kids either. This is all about freedom. Hey, listen, I'm a freedom guy. You want to do you. You want to poison yourself. You want to poison your kids. I'm not in favor of that, but I'm a freedom guy. That's up to you. But I'm going to choose what I do, what's right for me, my family, and of course, my patients.
Amen. Amen. I'm right with you. I am right with you. So let's segue a little bit into, probably what feels like something that I feel like every family sees, which is hypertension and blood pressure, because this is a big thing, and I see it in my family and extended family. I just hear about it all the time. So well, and we hear about it all the time, right? Because I feel like every other person is telling, someone, well, I'm on blood pressure meds, or I'm on this, or it's just one of the 4 medications that I take. And I feel like a lot of people are still under the presumption that in order to lower blood pressure, there has to be a drug involved to do that. So why don't you give us your thoughts surrounding high blood pressure medication, and what advice do you have for people to actually manage it appropriately?
Yeah, so high blood pressure is the sign that there's a problem. It's not a problem in and of itself. It's a sign that there's a problem, and you better figure out what is causing the high blood pressure. And the cause of high blood pressure is the same thing that we said causes everything else. Violations of the concept of eat well, live well, think well. So that's the issue with blood pressure. If you're on blood pressure drugs, you better be on a plan to get off the drugs. The drugs are poison. You don't live long when you take the pharmaceuticals. They don't work, and they have tons of side effects. Bad, bad, bad strategy. It's in the medical literature. If you have high blood pressure, which over 100 million people in the United States alone are labeled with high blood pressure, you better figure out why. It's not from a lack of pharmaceuticals. There are reasons why, and that's what we always, discuss. So whether it's high blood pressure, you're told you have high cholesterol, or you have coronary artery disease, maybe you've had a heart attack, maybe you've had a stroke, you got to figure out the why. That's going to be the ultimate strategy. So, we talk about the right foods, to eat for any scenario. And for me, we call that thrival nutrition. And that's eating a lot of seafood. It's eating a lot of free-range grass-fed meats, including the organs. It's about eating organic food, getting the chemicals, the poisons out of our food, pesticides, plastics, artificial ingredients out of it, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, all those things, getting rid of all that poison. And then there's the thrival lifestyle aspect of helping with blood pressure or anything else. Appropriate sleep, sunshine, physical activity, avoiding all these aforementioned toxins. And then back to what you said before, it's about thinking, well, finding your happy. Happy people are less likely to suffer from heart disease, cancer, brain diseases. So you find your happy, which can be difficult. I mean, it's a world that's almost predicated against, happiness in so many different ways. And they want that. They want you unhappy, because unhappy people are sicker people, and sicker people are better customers than healthy people.
Yep.
So, so how do you find you're happy? Yeah, it's good relationships, recovering from past traumas, PTSDs. It's about spirituality. It's about self-acceptance and gratitude. It's about a good sense of community, like being in your tribe of like-minded people. I think is also very helpful. And yeah, we live in a world where the government isolated us. They want us to stay home and stay apart. And that was just catastrophic on so many different levels. So, we operate under that premise of, like that thrival nutrition, thrival lifestyle. We love the Thrival Ultra Diagnostics doing the most advanced testing in the world to see what the issues are. Because maybe someone says, oh, well, your blood pressure's high and you need magnesium. Well, maybe it's magnesium, maybe it's potassium, maybe it's omega-3s, maybe it's B vitamins, or maybe it's an excess of toxins. Maybe it's high levels of plastics and phthalates and parabens and other, forever chemicals. Maybe it's mold mycotoxins, bacterial toxins from a water damaged building that people live in, water damaged houses, which is, so prevalent. Uh, those things there. And then, ultimately, yeah, we could talk about evidence-based supplements. We could talk about other, biohacking strategies. What about sauna and red light therapy and cold plunge? A lot of different modalities, but it really starts with the foundational things of the eat well, the live well, and the think well.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you brought up so many things that I was going to ask, and we'll touch back around nutrition in a bit. Um, I think this is my two-part follow-up question surrounding hypertension is, there's bound to be people listening to this episode that are thinking, well, my situation is unique. And I am definitely one of those people that needs a beta blocker or needs a BP med. And second part, would there be any conditions with anybody where something like that would come into play, or at least temporarily?
Everybody can get off pharmaceuticals, and we've been very successful in doing that. So there's a lot of different things that can drive high blood pressure. So, one thing, for example, would be sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is more common in people who are overweight. Well, if you lose the weight, then you no longer have sleep apnea oftentimes. And then your blood pressure starts to, normalize. So why not do that instead of taking a handful of pharmaceuticals? The same thing can be said about people who are under stress, people who have a poor diet, people who are diabetic. I mean, all these different people, and categories that can increase the risk of high blood pressure. But it's always about finding, the cause is of that. But everybody is amenable to at least the reduction of pharmaceuticals. But I want people to understand, if you're on drugs and your blood pressure is controlled, you're in trouble. You're
Mm,
not me without pharmaceuticals and normal blood pressure. You're not Vanessa Lopez,
mm.
as I understand it, with normal blood pressure without pharma. You're not the same as us. Your blood pressure number may be the same, but your risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying, and cancer and dementia is much, much, much higher. The drugs are a cover up. They're a pharmaceutical attempt, a band-aid, a sales process in bed with the doctors to make you think that you're getting benefit. You're not. You're not going to live long on pharmaceuticals. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended, but it really is because, again, I go back to the whole like the thought process of, well, my situation though, well, my situation requires, and I always say, you could have you can have the best doctor with the bedside manner of a saint, and that doesn't change the way he or she was trained. It just doesn't, like you can just absolutely, oh, I adore my doctor though, and they're so this and they're so that. And that is and can be very true. And it's no shade towards doctors who are just doing the best they can with what they know. But that doesn't mean that they have the appropriate information for you, even with your quote unquote unique situation, right?
Yeah, most certainly. It's just, doctors can be nice people. They can be not nice people. Holistic practitioners can have good beds or bad, it's a manner. I mean, that's true of every industry, going. But the reality is that we got to come armed, ready for these discussions. And if we're not happy with the answers we're getting, then we need to move on and find someone we're happy with. Doctors are not your friends. They're not your boss. They're not your parents. They're not in charge of you. You are the decision maker. You need to be in control. You need to work with a practitioner you resonate with. These are all very important. Doctor visits should not be confrontational. If you go to the doctor and you're like, oh, I'm so afraid they're going to try and push me on a statin drug, like, why would you go to that doctor? You need to go with doctors that are going to help you. So that's certainly important as you're shopping around for doctors.
Yeah, so well said. So I want to move on to cholesterol now because this is something that I've spoken about, over the years and tried my best to sort of, I don't want to say that I'm not an expert, right? But to sort of help enlighten others and largely family and friends and, maybe somewhat in the social media space about the fact that cholesterol is there's so much misinformation surrounding cholesterol. It's been vilified. A lot of people do not know the truth about it. And they also don't realize that statins are something that is so heavily pushed beyond what they could even conceptualize. And it's just like this myth beyond even comprehension, like I said. So I want you to, as thoroughly as you want, touch on cholesterol and the reality of statins and what people should be focusing on and what people need to know, truthfully.
Well, I will say this, statin drugs are the number one selling class of drugs of all time. Lipitor is the number one selling drug of all time. And the whole class of pharmaceuticals is worthless poison. And I never prescribed them for the last 10 plus years. There are other holistic practitioners who recommend statin drugs in certain situations or, alternative dosing and stuff like that. To me, statins are poison. They interfere with the production of cholesterol. They also interfere with the production of CoQ10, of things like heme A and dolichol, which are molecules most people have never heard of course, and medical doctors have not heard of those, but they're very important for mitochondrial function, brain function. My father took a statin drug, and I think that's one of the things that killed him. Statin drugs inhibit the production of dolichol. Dolichol is a steroid-like hormone that is found in the substantia nigra of the midbrain, the same area where Parkinson's is located. So I run away from statin drugs, and cholesterol has been vilified over the last 50 years, totally for the pharmaceutical industry, also for the food industry to sell us, Quaker Oats, oatmeal and other garbage processed food in a box. So cholesterol is a molecule that should be celebrated. So, as you sit there, Vanessa, and anyone who's listening, when you say the word cholesterol, like, what do you think about? Well, what I think about is hormones. I think about testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. I think about cortisol for energy. I think about aldosterone to balance my minerals like sodium, potassium, magnesium, and such. When I think about cholesterol, I think about the production of vitamin D, how the sun hits cholesterol coursing through the blood vessels of the skin and turns it into vitamin D, and how people with the highest levels of D naturally have the lowest risk of everything. I think about that. I think about my digestion, how the liver makes cholesterol and puts it into my gallbladder as bile acid and helps me emulsify fats and break down food for absorption. I think about the cell membrane of the fence of every single cell that decides what comes into the cell, what stays outside of the cell, how the cell functions. Cell membrane loaded with cholesterol. Why does mother's milk have cholesterol in it? Why does all mammals' milk for their infants have cholesterol? Why does a chicken egg contain cholesterol? Because that's how a chicken comes to life, because it contains cholesterol in the yolk. So yeah, I mean, like, cholesterol is an amazing molecule. Why would I want to lower my numbers down? I don't. What I want to do is I want to test my status. I can look at things like apolipoprotein BA ratios, and I can say, okay, well, this ratio is abnormal, and therefore I'm at risk. The answer is not statin drugs. The answer is, why are my lipids abnormal? But even more important than the lipids, because the lipids are really, these cholesterol numbers and stuff like that, they're just a response to what's going on with these violations of eat well, live well, think well. But if I'm looking for markers, I want to know about markers of inflammation, oxidative stress. Because if I'm inflamed, if I'm under what's called oxidative stress, or the oxidation process, like the rusting of metal, the rusting of an old car or something like that, if I have that, the answer is not to get a new fresh coat of paint and paint over the rusted car area. The answer is figure out why the car is getting rusty. What is causing the damage to it? And that's what we need to fix.
Yep. I love it. Thank you. That was an amazing explanation. And I think that, again, I go back to like the status quo conversation that I often hear, which is just like, well, my HDL and my LDL is the bad one, and that one looks like this. And I think that so many people are still so confused. So like just to make it super clear, I mean, if someone comes to you and is like, well, here's my HDL and here's my LDL, are you even caring about that really?
No, I'm not. And what's crazy I mean, it's just the brainwashing of a society. This concept of LDL as the bad cholesterol.
I,
That's pure pharmaceutical company speak. LDL is a carrier particle that contains cholesterol and triglycerides and fat soluble vitamins, and it's a tremendous antioxidant. So LDL has a purpose, which is why humans manufacture it. It's why all mammals contain LDL. It's for a reason. It's not bad. And HDL is not good. LDL has a purpose, HDL has a purpose, but it's pure pharmaceutical company speak in order to get us on prescription medications. And their marketing efforts are brilliant. Brilliant. How you have hundreds of millions of people walking around talking about the bad cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. It's absolute insanity. Not even to mention LDL is not even cholesterol. It's not. Cholesterol is inside LDLs, but it's not even like a bad cholesterol, per se. So ultimately, let me say this. People have damaged or oxidized LDL particles, and you can measure that, and you should measure that. And that's all part of their purpose, and it is linked to disease. But the oxidized LDLs, the damaged LDLs, just like the damaged HDLs, there's a reason why it's happening. And then when you reverse those reasons, now you start to get to, true health and wellness. And when you track that over time, you know that your plan is working. You know that you're on your way to the 100 to your heart, the 100 to your brain, to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish.
Perfect. No, oh my gosh, you guys, I hope that you are hearing what he is saying because this is so important. And again, I know that so many people have been told otherwise, but what Dr. Jack is talking about right now is absolute. It's imperative if you are worried about cardiovascular health, if you've had a cardiovascular incident, or if you're just overall wanting to optimize your health. Like there is so much to be said about what's been pushed when you get your lab work and what's actually true. So I really hope that you guys are digesting this. And speaking of digestion, I do want to go a little bit more into diet. And I love how you started talking about the eggs and all of that. And, I know that you have a lot to say about diet because there's a lot of rhetoric out there in terms of, oh, well, we need to be heart healthy, right? And so let's look at the food pyramid, which, by the way, is like the most fraudulent thing on the planet in terms of like what's really healthy for your body and, I guess, optimal health. But the whole like meat, eggs, butter, etc., being quote unquote bad for cholesterol and bad for cardiovascular health. Please touch on this for us.
Yeah, you talk about the food pyramid and stuff like that. And when you look at the food pyramid, the original food pyramid, it's and you see that the grain category is just as big as the vegetable category. Like, on what planet of delusion were people living where they made this food pyramid up? Well, that planet, of course, was created by the agricultural industry, the Kellogg's, the Quaker Oats, the Nabiscos. They write that pyramid and then the government promotes it. It was just an absolute sham. Does it surprise anybody that there are some dirty people in government? There are some people in this world who really don't care about the average person. No, I mean, obviously, they don't. They care about profits. It's profits over people, and that's what they're interested in. The food pyramid is a joke. And now, of course, my plate and all these other things. The vilification of eggs. An egg is a cocoon for a baby chicken. It contains all the vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats for a chicken to come to life. That is one of the most nutritious foods in the entire world for a human to eat. And try raising a chicken on oatmeal. You're not going to get very far. And we have chickens, and frankly, when we feed the chickens, if we take the chickens and we throw out some bison liver to our chickens, it is a feeding frenzy. They go crazy over that because they instinctively understand that nutritional value. We as humans, we lost a lot of those instincts. Certainly years and years and years ago. Our ancestors used to prize the organs They used to prize, the liver and the heart, but that's been kind of removed for so many people in society. The just so much of the promotion of the big box, foods in that pyramid is just, it's horrific. It's caused so much death, destruction, the artificials, the pesticides in there, the glyphosates, the atrazines, the organophosphates, the organochlorines that are in there. All those things destroy the gut microbiome. When you destroy the gut microbiome, all bets are off. You're done. You're really in trouble. So yeah, I mean, we've got to really do something, going forward to continue to educate people, against the common rhetoric. I mean, listen, you want a fat cow, you feed the cow grain. You want a healthy cow, you feed them grass. You want a healthy bison, same thing. And that's what's critical.
I agree. I agree. And I also agree with the whole chemical versus, it's like, I don't think that people realize the glyphosate issue is so big and it also plays so heavily into cardiovascular health. And I know that you talk a lot about this, but it's like, some people question, including people that I know and people in my family, well, does organic really matter today? I mean, is it more of a marketing thing? But you clearly feel like it is not just a marketing thing and that organic is very important when it comes to something like grains or produce. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, and this is where, we can kind of, debate. Should we go vegan, vegetarian, paleo, keto, carnivore? I am the paleo cardiologist. Our ancestors ate, they were hunter gatherers, and that's how they lived and how they consumed. But again, everything was organic. So no matter where you fall on that dietary spectrum, just get the chemicals out of your food. It's in the literature. These things are all problematic. As I mentioned, is that, one of the main things they do is they destroy the gut microbiome, this delicate, balance between the gut microbes and us, and this kind of symbiotic relationship that is present in all animal species. So we want that good relationship, but unfortunately, this man-made poisonous lifestyle doesn't really allow for that. And the pesticides, if they're killing pests, they're killing bacteria, they're killing our good microbes, and we suffer the consequences from it. And people need to understand that they need to eat organic food. And the beauty, listen, if you're like, oh, I want ice cream, tonight for, a snack after dinner. Okay, then get Strauss's, grass-fed ice cream. Make your own ice cream. Get another organic ice cream. Get the chemicals out. If you want pizza, eat organic pizza. Cookies, cupcakes, whatever it may be. The main things we tend to focus on: eating a lot of wild seafood, nose to tail animal products. Specifically, we reach for bison whenever possible.
Mm.
Always organic, and we personally were always gluten-free. Gluten is a deleterious molecule protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. There's no nutritional value to it. We don't need it. It causes a lot of people problems, so it's best to be avoided.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I feed my dogs bison and a gluten-free diet because, and they thrive on, well, I'm in the process of potentially figuring out, some diet tweaks with both of them, but in general, they've done so well on it. And, it's wild because it's like the animals sometimes tell you what you need to know, right? They don't thrive on kibble. They don't thrive on like trash food, and neither do we, truly, neither do we. So, some of the other things that I wanted to touch on that I feel like are important, sugar. How important is it to stay away from seed oils? And like I said, sugar, like what are your preferred choices for sugar? And also, what are your thoughts on a low fat diet in general? I feel like we've sort of already covered that, but just to sort of like nail nail it in, I guess. I'm at a loss for words, but you could take it from here.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's all great stuff because those are all kind of controversial things that are circulating around right now. So, sugar, our ancestors never ate refined sugar. Our ancestors ate raw honey. They had maybe maple syrup if they were able to obtain that. And they had fruit sugar. That's all that there was. And fruit sugar would have been seasonal. So there's no reason to debate anything else from that. So raw honey would have been more of a treat. Seasonal fruit, like I said, and of course, fruit was different, back then. I don't think that fruit in general is the biggest problem. That's for sure. I don't think raw honey is a problem at all. I mean, if you're trying to lose weight, I mean, yeah, if you're trying to lose weight, then you need to cut out sugar because sugar raises your insulin levels. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So you want to, reduce that sugar intake until you reach a good, weight. And then you can resume some of that sugar. If you're going to do organic, cane sugar, coconut sugar, organic beetroot sugar, I'm okay with that. You just got to obviously just got to be careful with how much you would consume, and each person would be different. Artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, obviously that stuff is all poison. To your point about seed oils, I think there's a lot of conversation about seed oils. Seed oils are not, they're not whole food. So we really shouldn't be consuming much of those. When we're eating a hunter-gatherer diet, where does the seed oil come in? It really doesn't. Now, we do know that, I think there's some medicinal seeds, right? So how do you draw the line? Like black cumin seed oil has a lot of good data and information. So that's a seed. Is that a bad oil? Is that a good oil? Again, it's really hard to kind of pick and choose there. Should we be consuming a lot of sunflower oil, safflower oil from those seeds? Should we be consuming a lot of canola oil and soybean oil? No, obviously not. So we shouldn't have any of that stuff. If we do any of that, we do it organically. The best oils are going to be, or the best cooking fats are going to be animal-based products. I think the literature is pretty clear on the benefits of olive oil. So I'm cool with the use of olive oil as that relates to. But we're having this conversation about olive oil. Olive oil, by definition, is fat. So why would we want to go on a low-fat diet when the people who consume the most amount of olive oil, for example, live the longest? An avocado is loaded with fat. Nuts and seeds. Everybody knows that the consumption of nuts and seeds are healthy. They're loaded with fat. Coconut oil, islands in the South Pacific, they eat tons of coconut, use coconut oil, and they live a long time, and they all smoke. So, it's clearly not a low-fat thing. The low-fat thing just deprives your brain of quality nutrients. But it was a way to sell us, these, granola treats, oatmeal, Cheerios cereal. It was all a scam. It was all one of the many, many, many scams that the government and their corporate masters perpetrate on us.
Yep. Yep. You said it. And I agree with you. What do you have to say about someone who eats a vegan diet for heart health?
They're sadly mistaken, and they're not going to live long, and they're not going to live well. It's just not natural. Humans need certain vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats that you only find in the animal world. People with the highest levels of omega-3 fatty acids from EPA and DHA that only come from eating seafood, they live the longest, they live the best. Some of the best data to counteract what's out there in the vegan world. For example, the vegans love to trot out the Seventh Day Adventist study and evidence there, but actually the people who live the longest in that study are the women who eat seafood. Blue zones, a lot of them are seafood eaters. And there's a lot of other benefits of being in a blue zone in these areas. They're communities. They're happy. They love each other, so most communities are full of hate, full of anger, full of insecurities and despair. And when you go to these blue zones, it tends to be happy people, which just goes back to you and I discussing about think well, finding your tribe, finding like-minded people. Yeah, we should have debate. We should have conversation. I'm not saying that everything has to be Shangri-La in your life, but in general, when you have enough people in your life that are against you and argue with you and don't treat you well and they don't resonate with you, like why would you want to be around them? Why would you want to hang out with them? You wouldn't. You need to move on from those people. They could be family members, they could be longtime friends, bless the relationships, hey, listen, Dr. Jack, Jack Wolfson was such a great guy, he was the life of the party, we used to go to Vegas, we used to go to, Mardi Gras, we would travel, he was fun in medical school. Like I really miss that guy. He would eat, hot dogs and deep dish pizza, have a few, adult beverages and stuff like that. Like I miss that guy. Well, that guy's not here anymore. Like that guy, and those are great memories. Like, and, had a lot of fun with those, but they're in the rearview mirror. Why? Because I don't want to die. I don't want to get sick like my father. I want to be an old father and an old, grandfather. I don't want that to happen to me. So I don't live like that anymore.
Yeah, and I like that you brought that up a lot because I think that you hear, I say this a lot, and I actually think I wrote a post about it. That the people who sort of say like, well, it's fine, like everything in moderation, like you can, I think that's a cop out. I think that is such a cop out because you relinquish the responsibility and it makes it okay, right? So I just feel like, when you have a goal and you really want to focus on longevity and and not just longevity, but like vitality, you need to really not be normal because what's like normal and common is not going to get you there. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, yeah, the whole thing about moderation. There's just okay, is moderation of food, is it better than someone who only eats, fast food, cookies and cupcakes?
Mm.
Yeah, I guess so. And life is to be enjoyed, so do it organically, and therefore it's like, okay, can I have a little bit of ice cream? Can I have gluten-free bread and French toast, for example? Like you can a lot of people can do those things and not have any problems whatsoever. Of course, you can measure that in all the advanced, blood and urine and stool and salivary testing that holistic practitioners do to make sure that you're on track and those things aren't bothering you. But yeah, the whole moderation thing, like I don't think we should be drinking alcohol in moderation. I don't think we should be having Cheetos and Blue Bonnet ice cream in moderation. And not to mention, like I would never want to support those companies. I work hard for my money. People pay me, for my products and services. And I respect that. And I'm not going to take my hard-earned money and go invest it, and spend it, on a company that's poisoning the planet, poisoning the earth. Like there's just no scenario. There's no scenario where I go out for dinner and it's at, Outback Steakhouse. Like I would never eat that food. I'm not going to spend money on non-organic produce because I'm not going to support the people that are poisoning the planet. And the more we behave like that, and the more we vote with our dollars, really, the more things are going to improve. Prices come down, everybody gets better, healthier, and I think that's the way.
Wow. You kind of took my next question before I move on to some listener questions that I have for you. But I was going to ask, first of all, I love what you said about supporting, supporting companies because I feel very much the same way. But I was also going to ask you the question about alcohol and how important it is to be aware of how alcohol affects your cardiovascular health, whether or not you have a condition or not. But even if you do have a condition, how much should we be looking at the reduction or the minimization of alcohol, and what impact does it have on one's health in general when it comes to heart health?
Yeah, I think that alcohol is kind of an interesting one. Let's say this, like our distant ancestors obviously didn't drink alcohol. I think alcohol in general is a liver toxin, it's a brain toxin. The literature tells us that alcohol consumption increases the risk of various diseases, including atrial fibrillation, which is a common cardiac issue. Now, how much of the problem in a can of Budweiser, for example, how much of it is the alcohol molecule and how much of it is the gluten or the pesticides that are in there, other chemicals that are in there? How much of it is the can, and how much of that does that lead to disease? And the answer is it's going to be some of it. So if you're going to drink alcohol, just drink organic alcohol. There's plenty of different organic beers. Heck, even Michelob makes an organic beer that is organic, is not gluten free, and I don't drink it. And personally, I wouldn't buy, big box, organic anyways. I try and go with small batch, small craft, things there. But the organic tequila. So if I was to go out for a drink or I was going to join somebody for a drink, then I would buy, get a glass of organic tequila. There's organic wines. So again, just enjoying life. Keep that in moderation for sure, less than moderation. For a lot of people, it's a major problem. It interferes with sleep, interferes with hormones. We just don't need it, and it interferes with our brain, our judgment. So we don't need that. But again, if you're going to do it, just do it organically.
Yeah, I agree. And I like a glass of wine every once in a while, but I also see the effects of it. So I try to be really, I just try to be really minimal. And, I do my due diligence and like how I order it or how I buy it or whatnot. But it's interesting because I used to kind of operate under the mindset of, oh, well, gosh, there's no way I can go out to dinner and not have a glass of wine. But the more that my body changed, the more I lost the desire for it. And I'm not saying that I don't every once in a while have a drink, but it's just that my body actually doesn't want it, or my mind and my body doesn't actually crave it or want it as much. And it's just, I find it to be fascinating how, as I've gotten healthier from the inside out, I don't have the same thoughts around the alcohol, or around like going to an event and like needing to have a drink because everybody else is having the drink, or how somehow my meal isn't going to be the same because it's not complete with that glass of wine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also, if you're someone who's like, I need that drink to unwind at the end of the day, or it helps me with stress relief. Well, you would look at that and say, why do I feel at the end of the day, why do I feel the need to unwind?
Mm.
Why do I feel the need to have a de-stressor in their life? Why do I feel the need that if I'm going out for dinner with one person or a group of people, that I need to have this in order to enjoy myself, or for my personality to come out, or to break the ice? I think that, once again, we can enjoy ourselves if that's what it is, a little bit. I just think it's like the older that I get, the more problematic it is. Like, my conversations are not as good, and I'm not as sharp, and I'm even maybe more self-conscious because I know that my mind is not operating right. And then, of course, it impacts your sleep. I mean, one thing that I was always conscious of, especially years ago, and when the kids, were younger, even so, and maybe like for my first one, like if I would, go out and have, a few drinks, and then the next day I would not be feeling my best, or, would have like a hangover. Well, how do you explain that to your child? How do you explain that to your pet? Like, oh, like, I don't really want to go for a walk today. I'm hungover. I mean, like, yeah, you can't do that. You
Yeah.
never want to be that person. And yeah, and I quickly understood that as well. So, again, there's alcoholics. There are people who again really rely on alcohol. Maybe they wouldn't fit the classic definition of alcoholics, but I definitely think it's a problem. And yeah, to wrap that up again, I'm not saying never. Usually I say like 1 to 2 drinks per week. At a maximum, and organically in that nature. So if you're like, I want to celebrate at the end of the week, harder in a week, I want to go out, I want to have a, glass of wine. Okay, make it organic wine, make it on a Friday or Saturday night, and leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. Okay, let's bang these out really quick because I have a couple questions for you before we wrap. So, um, let's see. In terms of measuring heart attack risk, what do you have to say about traditional testing and specifically CT scanning?
So traditional testing would be things like, total cholesterol, HDLs, LDLs, and those are totally worthless. So I never use those. I use much more advanced testing to get information. Inflammation, oxidative stress are most important. We even sell a home urinary test kit for oxidative stress. If somebody wanted to go to a website URL called My Heart Attack Risk, they would see that particular test that we offer right there. No doctor's order needed or anything like that. CT scans, I never order CT scans. CT scans are radiation. They cause heart disease. They cause brain disease. They cause cancer. They're not going to change what we do. Even if your CT scan is the worst of all time, what are we going to do? We're still going to run you through the same testing, still talk about eat well, live well, think well. We're not going to put you on pharmaceuticals. So CT scans are a dangerous, useless ploy in order to get people into the system, because now that they've been diagnosed with coronary artery disease, now we can order stress testing and things like that are useless, that make doctors a lot of money. Stay away from CT scans. If you've already had one, okay, that's, we can use those results to have a discussion. But like I said, I never ordered that test. I never recommend it.
Okay, okay. This is an interesting one, and I'm actually really, really interested in your response. Healing heart issues or concerns post jab.
Mhm. So, again, there's not a lot of literature, of course, regarding this, but it's like I view everything through that same lens of that 100-year heart method. So, post any kind of toxic, poisonous, sinister
Mm,
exposure of any kind, especially this most recent poisonous, toxic, sinister thing that happened. It's about trying to recover through the lens of eating well, living well, thinking well, test, don't guess, evidence-based supplements, biohacking strategies. I've seen a lot of destruction from things over the last few years. And hopefully people learn their lesson. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And we'll see on the next go around when the next thing happens.
Yep.
And there will be another next thing. There always is. We all remember the flu, the swine flu, the bird flu, Ebola, SARS-1, SARS-CoV-2. Now it's another bird flu that everybody's freaking out about, or it's RSV. And then, of course, you've got chickenpox and measles and mumps and rubella and the dreaded polio, which polio was all pesticides.
Yep.
So, yeah, what else can I say? And hopefully people don't fall for it again. That's all there is to it. But this is where, a couple things are really important. Again, freedom of speech to have these conversations. The purpose of having these conversations, the continued debate on this, and we should again have the freedom and the autonomy over our bodies. The government in bed with evil people and evil corporations run by evil people. They will want us to continue to be their subjects. And unless you wake up, unless you everything, question everything, everything that's been in the news recently, everything political, everything energy related, everything financial related, question everything. And the freedom to ask those questions is paramount, because once they take away your freedom for something, you may be even for it. You may be someone who's like, oh no, I definitely believe in mandates, definitely should have been mandated. The next thing you may not agree with, but once you give the powers that be, they take away your rights. The next thing you may not be in favor of. So be
That's right.
really careful.
That's right. It's like death by a thousand paper cuts. They get you slowly and slowly and slowly. You're speaking my language, and I'm sure for my friends who are listening right now, like my actual friends, they're probably cracking up because they're probably like, Vanessa is squirming in her in her seat right now because and I am, because I cannot agree with you more. Let's see, two more. Thoughts on the Watchman implant?
Watchman. So what that is, it's kind of like if you think of like a badminton birdie that goes into a certain part of the heart in order to prevent strokes in people who have atrial fibrillation. So there's a lot surrounding that, but I think that for some people, the Watchman procedure can be beneficial. But ultimately, I am about all these things, like I said 50 times already. Eat well, live well, test, don't guess, evidence-based supplements, biohacking strategies. When those things fail or they're not enough, there's a place for pharmaceuticals, there's a place for surgeries, there's a place for Watchman procedures. But I definitely think there's a lot of strategies, that are different from that are very useful. And then don't forget, like any kind of medical procedure, it's got risk. So if you put something into that left atrial appendage where the Watchman device goes, and similar, these what's called left atrial appendage occluder devices, they can break loose. Like this piece that they put in there could actually break loose and cause you to have a massive stroke and die. So there's risks to any medical procedure. Consider those risks.
Awesome. Thank you for that. One more. Let's just do one more. So nervous but proactive about stopping all medications after having a heart attack at a very young age, 32 years old, very proactive in wanting to get off of it. Actually, a patient of someone that I think you know, Dr. Barkey. Um, what can you say to someone like this who absolutely wants to do the right thing, but has also some hesitation?
Yeah, you got to work with a guide. You got to work with a practitioner. You're not going to want to do this, alone. Just like if you're, check engine light, goes on, or there's a problem, with your car, with your house. You may have the skill set to do that, but you may not. So you want to recognize your limitations, and you want to work with a partner. It could be me, one of my, teammates over at Natural Heart Doctor, or somebody similar, Dr. Barkey. I mean, there's some amazing people in this space. I'm not the only person who's shouting this message. Obviously, you know that, Vanessa. You're shouting it, I'm shouting it, and the more of us who are shouting it from the rooftops without fear,
Hmm.
that's how we're going to wake up people, because there are so many, people just sit in front of the television, believe everything that they're being told, listening to people that, believe everything they're being told. So, but the more of us that are out there shouting the truth, I mean, I would say this, Vanessa, you and I just met, an hour ago. And I would sooner send someone to you for health and wellness information than any medical doctor I've ever worked with. You
Wow.
know, and is that kudos to you and pat on your back? Yeah, it is. That's cool. But it's a condemnation of the system.
Right.
Like, wait a second, you wouldn't want someone who's spent 10 years in cardiology training, you wouldn't want them to talk about heart attack prevention? No, they're worthless. Why would I send someone to them? I wouldn't send my dog to one of those people, and I love my dog. I wouldn't send my goats or anybody else, those people. They're great in the emergency. Like, if I'm in the middle of a heart attack, I'm not going to call up Vanessa Lopez and say, what do I do? Like, I'm going to go to the hospital, but if I'm like, how do I prevent another heart attack? Well, medical doctor at Harvard says, here, take these pharmaceuticals. Talk to Vanessa Lopez. Oh, Vanessa Lopez is like, hey, listen, I've been studying this, and I also got a brain and common sense. And I'm like, hey, these foods are really good. Sleep, sunshine, physical activity. I read about all these different toxins and injections and chemicals and poisons. You don't want to do that. And I know that just from, being a Dr. Google, read this awesome article, that I found about how, gratitude is beneficial for people with heart issues. How deep breathing and breathing techniques, alternative nostril breathing is good. I read about how yoga is good. I read about how massage, how chiropractic, how avoiding plastics and phthalates and parabens. I read that that's really important. So if you follow that, yeah, that's a better plan than swallowing a statin drug.
Oh my goodness. I feel like we could go on for hours because this is just it's friends, this is some of the most valuable information I think that has ever been spoken on this show. And so, I'm speaking to you all directly, and I know that Dr. Jack, wholeheartedly agrees when I say that this is absolutely imperative, whether you have cardiovascular concerns or not right now, because you might in the future. The things that he is saying, you need to sit with. You need to go back and listen to this again. You need to take some notes. You need to really check where you're at and how much you, I guess, may have fallen prey to the system, so to speak. And again, it's not about judgment or blame. I say this on the show all the time because we're doing the best we can with the information that we have at the time. But when we're presented with new information, we then are presented with a choice, which is a beautiful thing. And what Dr. Jack is kind of laying out for you all here is that you have choices, and it is a lot more vast and a lot more possible than you might have thought in your past, despite what your journey has looked like up until this point. And again, I'm speaking to myself, right? Because this has been an evolving journey for me. There are things I used to believe that I don't anymore. I used to have a totally different perspective on healing and so forth. So my goodness, I don't even know where to go from here. Is there, because we are just about ready to wrap, is there any last thoughts that you want, besides what you just gave us, which was essentially just perfect? Is there any last thoughts that you want to leave us with, or particularly the person that might still feel overwhelmed, might still feel like they're in a unique place, might still feel like this sounds great for, my neighbor, but I don't know about me. I still feel like I can't really move the needle. What would you say to that?
You just got to get help. You just got to talk to somebody who can help you. That's because it definitely is, in my 20 plus years of experience. And like I said, being born into the medical matrix, there is just a much better way to health and wellness. It can be achieved no matter what your situation is. You can definitely get healthier. It's not going to happen with a medical doctor. It's not going to happen with pharmaceuticals or injections, nothing like that. So, and then, don't forget to, share this message, share this video, share other videos. When is too much enough? Like, when should we stop? When should we get off the stump? When should we stop being the person like every meal, like, oh, there goes Vanessa again. She's talking about organic. Oh, there goes Vanessa. She's talking about sunshine. Oh, there goes Vanessa. It's like, no, well, that's it. And if like, this is me, like I always talk about this. I'm always on the stump. I'm always preaching, the truth about health and wellness. And if you don't like it, then don't listen, but I'm not going to stop, because of you. I don't care what you think about me. I care what I think about me. I have a, purpose and a passion and a reason why I am put here on earth. And it wasn't to prescribe statin drugs anymore. It's to tell people about health and wellness. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, Vanessa. Thank you again.
Oh, beautifully said. And really, the pleasure is mine. Where can people find you to learn more about you, social media, your website, your book, and so forth?
Yeah, come over to naturalheartdoctor.com. We got all the information over there that would help people about how, ways to work with us. Free information that's there, testing we recommend, foods we recommend, all that kind of stuff. My team is awesome, just great, like-minded people. And then, my book is available for free. You can go to the paleocardiologist.com. You can get a free copy of the book. All you do is pay shipping. We mentioned that myheartattackrisk.com is that URL for people who want a urinary measure of oxidative stress. That's a pretty cool place. And I'm all over social media. So, if you Google me, you'll find me. You'll find some not so pleasant information. You'll find some good information. And then you decide. Then that's freedom. You're free to choose whoever you want. Good luck.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You guys, if you are not following Dr. Jack Wolfson on social media, I highly suggest it. And again, all of these resources will be in the show notes for you. And if you have a hard time finding anything, you can also reach out to me anytime and I will point you in the right direction as always. It has been such a pleasure. This conversation has definitely been one of my favorites in about 60 shows. So from my heart, and just I know that you're a very busy guy, and just to take the time to have a discussion with me and really enrich this audience with the truth. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Vanessa. Thank you all for listening.
Absolutely. All right, my friends, we will see you on the next one.